Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us during the Lytham Partners Fall 2024 Investor Conference. My name is Roger Weiss. I'm a Vice President here at Lytham Partners. In this presentation, we welcome Modular Medical, NASDAQ ticker symbol MODD, and with us today is their CEO, Jeb Besser. Modular Medical is a development stage medtech company which has engineered and received FDA clearance on its new insulin pump. Jeb is also a portfolio manager at Manchester Management, which is the largest holder of Mod shares. With that said, all right, Jeb, let's start. Firstly, congratulations on the pump's approval. The shares have obviously gone up, but not as much as one might think. And I can ask you to put on your PM hat. What do you think is holding back the shares?
Well, I think it's a couple things. One is I still feel like there's a general lack of knowledge that we even exist in the industry. You know, we've flown this plane across the goal line of clearance with just basically the wings, the engine, and the fuel, and not a lot of other stuff. We haven't spent, we don't have a big marketing organization. We don't have an existing product on the market. And I think the industry is just starting to become aware that we are here and that we have the clearance and that we're credible. I think that's, excuse me, I think that's one factor. Another factor is there's a perception that we're going to immediately turn around and do some kind of terrible financing. I've certainly gotten enough calls on that in the 2 weeks since we got cleared, but I think we're going to be judicious and take our time and figure out what the best path forward is for us in terms of maximizing value on the asset, whether or not that's a strategic sale or a partnership or a go-it-alone strategy for some period of time. And I think people probably also view us from the prism of, oh, well, you're a Me Too pump. If you don't understand our value proposition and you don't understand that we're targeting the 80% of people who haven't gone on a pump yet, and not trying to take share in the 20% who have gone on a pump, which basically every other product in this space targets. I think you'd probably be under the correct impression that a Me Too product in this space would take 10 years and $500 million to get anywhere on. But that's not us. We think we have much more pull from consumers and doctors and frankly insurers than the other products. So I think that's it. I think those are the major issues. And naturally there's some profit taking, but I think that'll work itself out over time. And I think every day that we don't put up some 200% warrant coverage, terrible deal in the hole that doesn't give us scale, brings credibility to the idea that actually we're not going to do that. and I will just say, we're not going to do a bad deal to put cash on the balance sheet so that I can pay my substantial $1 salary. There's no one at this company right now who has a vested interest in which path we choose. It's just which path is right for the shareholders.
Got it. In terms of, timing, right before you guys got approved, I saw that Embecta had also received clearance for their insulin pump. How do you look at the competitive field of pump providers right now?
Well, so on the one hand, I'm grateful that consumers have another choice with Embecta getting cleared. On the other hand, I have to say that I was a little bummed that they got cleared 4 days before us, because I was going to say that we were going to be the first 3 ml patch pump, and they beat us to that by 4 days. And I was also going to say that we were the first pump to get cleared after one set of questions, and they also beat us on that front. However, where they didn't beat us is that they are a one-piece pump, just like insulin. And when you think about the cost profile of all of these products, and it doesn't have a button either, so it's as best I can tell. So it's going to have a separate controller, which a lot of patients don't like. But when you look at the economics on a product like this, and you compare our economics to, say, Insulet or Embecta, because they're both one-piece pumps, if you throw the whole thing away every 3 days, versus reusing the electronics for 90 days. And the electronics are the most expensive part of the pump and the part of the pump that has to be accurate to within 200th of a drop with 5% accuracy, 5% error margin, and never fail open that's a really, really tough burden to overcome in terms of cost. So I think just that fact alone means that we're not ever going to be cost competitive. They're not ever going to be cost competitive with us in terms of scale. And I think ultimately it's another product that targets the same 20% of people who are well served by current pumps. And I would say that that is broadly true of the other pumps that have come on the market recently, Beta Bionics being the most prominent example, but also Deca Sequel Twist and Tandem's Mobi, I think cater to a current pump user or someone who was a pump user very recently, who just got tired of all the features and the functionality and wanted a slightly lower level experience, but is still willing to wear a form factor that isn't ideal.
Got it. Let me just switch gears on you a little bit.
Yep.
It seemed like you probably got cleared a little faster than, certainly you were, we'll say, conditioning the market to, if
Yes.
not expecting.
Yep.
So what's the next step for you from both an operational and a strategic standpoint for the company?
So just addressing the point of us getting cleared quickly, when you have an N of 0 of pumps that have ever been cleared after one set of questions, and you're coming into that period where they have to either clear you or give you a second set of questions, it's probably a good bet to expect a second set of questions if it's never happened before. And then it happened within back to 4 days before we got cleared. And you also don't usually expect that the FDA is going to move 2 days before their statutory action date, which also happened. So that's a credit to our clinical and regulatory people. It's a credit to the design of the product and the team that's worked on it for so long and so hard. But I think it's also a sign that the FDA wants this kind of product on the market. They understand the value proposition of we need to make technology more accessible in order to have more people use it, because that's why 4 out of 5 people who should be wearing a pump still aren't wearing a pump. That's why Robert Califf, the head of the FDA at the ADA meeting, said, we're never going to have enough educators. We're never going to have enough doctors that are specialists here. We have to push care out to the primary care physician and the general practitioner and the general nurse. And I don't think there's another pump on the market that has any possibility of doing that like ours. So I think there's the FDA moves, one, takes care of patient safety, and I think our interaction with them was very reasonable, but they also know what they want. And I think they want products like ours on the market. They want patients to have more choice, and I'm glad that they have more choice. So what are we going to do next now that we've gotten this over the goal line? What we're going to do is we have a couple things we have to do. One is we have to complete the move of the manufacturing to Mexico, which is underway. 2, we're going to have to validate that line, which is going to take until early next year. And remember, when you get cleared in this space, a human being has never worn this product and pumped insulin. That's illegal and unethical. So we have to do a small investigational study at an academic institution somewhere in the world that speaks English, preferably, where patients actually wear it and pump insulin. And that's not because we think it's dangerous. That's because we think that it's important to make sure that we've got the quick start guide just right. We've got the usability just right. The button is the right clickiness. Everything is as it should be before we go to a broader launch. So that has to be done, manufacturing transition. And then there are a couple other things we have to do. When you submit a product to the FDA, you basically have to freeze the design. And if you change anything major in the course of the clearance process, if you change it and they didn't ask you to, you have to go back to go. So you don't want to do that. So we have a long list of things that we know we want to tweak that don't require FDA approval. And then we have a list of things that do require probably let's call it a special 510K clearance. So the FDA has another pathway where you can file for a special 510K clearance and they'll answer a question. They'll answer a single yes/no question with a single reviewer in 30 days. And so we've got a couple questions like that, because what we didn't want to have happen is have the FDA say, you know what? I love your novel pumping technology, but I hate your set. So we use someone else's set. I I love your novel pumping technology and I love your two-part pump, but I don't like the work you've done on ACE designation. Well, we didn't go for ACE designation for that reason. So we have to go back and backfill that. And ACE designation, for those viewers that don't know, is the common synchronization language that pumps speak with continuous glucose monitors. So we've got a bunch of things like that we have to backfill that I don't view as technically risky. And frankly, I don't view them as FDA risky, but we wanted the FDA to answer the most important question in the company's history, which is, do they accept that our novel pumping mechanism in a two-part pump is safe and effective for a consumer? And they did. And because of that, we have a great platform. And that leads to the other thing we're going to do, which is we have this little proof of concept study going on in GLP-1s, which we're going to study, that we're going to run in October, to see if there's another application for this platform carrying a rapid acting GLP-1 to see if it might have favorable impact for people with metabolic disease, such as obesity and type 2 diabetes, but it can't tolerate the one size fits all weekly GLP-1 shots. I'll warranty all day long, since we haven't talked about this in this forum, that if you can tolerate a once weekly GLP-1 shot, you are not going to wear a pump. If you're getting great results from that, why would you? But obviously, we've seen the Blue Cross Blue Shield data that says 35% of people who are Blue Cross Blue Shield subscribers are off the therapy within 4 weeks and 50% within 12 weeks. And that's some combination of cost and adverse effects or lack of efficacy. And so we think we can help with that, potentially. Obviously, we're not a drug company. This isn't something we would take all the way, but I think we want to show that our platform is applicable to a number of other applications. And there's no point in talking about your platform if you can't get it cleared for one application, the one that was designed for. But trialing this is not a distraction, because it's going to cost us, low six figures and no engineering changes needed to explore this. So that data should be out in November. With that,
sounds good. Yeah, maybe we can get back to the GLPs in a little bit. I want to go on to something else, which is you have in the past spoken about hiring an investment banker and approaching industry strategic players once, number one, you had either had or were close to FDA clearance, and number two, could demonstrate manufacturing scalability.
Yep.
Are you there?
Well, we have the clearance. We have the manufacturing is in the process of being stood up, so soon enough. I think that we've validated our novel pumping technology, and you saw that we got a patent issued on Wednesday, which covers the claims of which cover basically all the major mechanisms of the way we pump insulin that's different. So that's good. So I think we have a broad-based freedom to operate. So yeah, I think we do meet those characteristics, and I think we're going to try, and whether or not we hire a banker formally or whether or not we go directly to the obvious players and then see if there's interest, and then if there is, then obviously you want to run a process, right? So I think we want to assess interest before we actually get a formal engagement done with a banker. And obviously it's been 2 weeks since the clearance, so I'll just say all this stuff takes time. But our plan, as far as trying to explore which path provides the best shareholder value on a risk-reward basis, has not changed. That is still our only guiding factor in terms of what we're going to do.
In terms of talking, because clearly there are two paths here, either selling the company or commercializing the.
Well, I'd argue that there are three. I'd actually say there are three.
Please.
So path one is a straight sale of the asset right now. Path two is interested parties say, yeah, I see where you're going with this. I'm not convinced yet that almost pumpers are a real market, or that you can get real traction with this product with this very different feature set and level of complexity. Prove it. Get a few thousand customers on, and then we'll have a real conversation. Or it might be, I don't think almost pumpers are a real market. I don't think you have the financial resources. I dare you to go after this market. and if we have to pay more for you later, we will. And I think, and look, I want to be absolutely clear about this. We're not afraid of any of these three options. We think there is a huge market out there for our product. We think we are tremendously differentiated. We think there's tons of pull from existing clinicians in this market who already know customers that they would put on our product the day that it's available for human use in the US, in a manufactured in a facility that actually is for human use. So we're not afraid of any of those options. And we want to see where the best value is, because obviously there's a trade-off between commercializing for a little while and what value you might expect as a result of that versus a sale of the asset at this point.
With that being said, so within those three options, how do you think about spending money at the company right now? Because obviously you've mentioned doing a small investigational, I call it trial, but that's, just making sure everything works with the pump. Moving forward with regulatory issues domestically, I know you're looking at other regulatory environments overseas.
Yep.
How do you think about spending money, and more importantly, where do you spend money with, potentially many paths in front of you?
Well, luckily right now, some of these things you should spend money on regardless of which path you choose. There's no path that doesn't see value accruing to filing for clearance in foreign markets. So we're absolutely going forward with that, and we already have the regulatory people, and we're engaging with trusted entities that are going to help us pursue that process. And so I don't think that's neither an increase in the burn rate nor something that's going to negatively impact our value proposition. And any acquirer would apply for those foreign jurisdictions as well. For manufacturing ramp up, it's the same story. Any acquirer will pay a multiple, I believe, for a more scaled up, higher margin, more optimized line that they're going to use, because an acquirer wouldn't keep much of anything that we have except for our engineering resources, because they would have ClinReg, right? They'd probably have a sales force, et cetera. That's the piece that they would keep, and that's the piece that they would value. And so I think we will get a multiple on progress that we make on that. So regardless of what path we choose, it's very easy to make decisions on, now I'm going to spend money on things that will optimize the line. And really that's the cut that we're applying to every expense right now. Do we spend money on it because it's applicable to any one of these three paths? And there are a lot of expenses that are applicable to any one of these three paths, and that's what we're pursuing. Getting ACE designation, helpful. Getting other flavors of insulin on the pump, helpful. Getting other doing engineering optimization of the line as we get it scaled up, helpful. Ordering bigger cavity tools, helpful. All these things are just, the bigger decision is, when do you if you decide you're going it alone for some period of time, do you hire a sales force? And that's going to dovetail nicely with, what do you think it's going to cost to commercialize? And because that's also, because I think our thinking has continued to mature in that way, in terms of, if we did this ourselves, how would we do it? And I think we've been pretty clear that the way we're not going to do it is have a fleet of 100 reps detailing patients at the kitchen table. That's a sure way to torch a lot of money and make ourselves look like our competition. One of the major advantages of our product is you can learn it in less than 30 minutes in person. One of the advantages of our product is you can sample it without taking a tremendous financial risk on having the patient take the reusable home. Like, I think we can pursue a very differentiated strategy using a bunch of different channels. That's going to be much more cost effective than doing a Me Too and trying to sell at the kitchen table against three established products that are well integrated into the whole diabetes ecosystem, where everyone understands the value proposition of each of them. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And you mentioned burn rate.
Yep.
You've already noted you're not doing a big dilutive deal to commercialize the pump when
we don't know what we're going to do.
Right. Having strategic discussions. I think as of the last quarter, you showed about 5 million in cash on the balance sheet.
That's right.
Do you need any additional cash so that you could comfortably have those conversations? And if the answer is yes, where might some of that extra capital come from?
So we did have 5 million at the end of June. Our burn rate historic in general has been a little more than $1 million a month, plus some additional CapEx at times, which obviously we have a lot of control over. We have an ATM with Leerink. That's been available to us since the clearance. So we've probably added to our runway a little bit off that. We have some warrants at $1.22, some of which might have been exercised. And I think the combination of those two things allows us to have some walk around money to figure these things out while we continue to make progress on the things that are obvious that we should be spending money on. And look, we're a small organization, right? So it's, even if I wanted to hire another 30 people right now to go out and do everything that I need to do, the reality is you want to find the right people. And there's nothing that says you need to have the right people more than us getting this clearance, spending as little money as we ended up spending relative to other companies that have gotten cleared. So, and other companies that have spent way more money and never gotten cleared. So we want to be careful about picking the right groceries and putting the right resources in place. And I think there's enough low-hanging fruit here and enough things to do for the existing team that I don't see our burn rate changing dramatically for a few months while we figure this out. So the objective here would be, if we do any kind of a raise, it would be a very small, very selective one to extend our runway well into the new year at current burn rates. Clearly, we don't have enough cash on the sheets right now to do a full-blown commercial launch ourselves. We would have to do something. But look, I've said this to other investors actually today, and I'll say it here again. I'm a big believer in not having walk around money for the sake of having walk around money, partly because I don't care about it, because I don't have any salary. My belief is that you need to come with a coherent ask and say, why am I choosing this path, and what is this money going to get the shareholders in terms of progress, in terms of traction, in terms of cost per unit, in terms of engineering optimization, in terms of marketing reach. And I don't feel like I have the answer to that yet, because I don't know enough about which of these paths is going to prove to be most attractive. So I think I'd say, if you're waiting for a huge raise next week, well, you're going to keep waiting because it's not happening. But yeah, I'm not going to rule out some kind of a selective rifle shot of some amount of money to continue to do what we should be doing. But no, our current commercial plan does not call for $50 million in marketing expenditure, because I don't think that's the most efficient way to access our audience, which is very different from the other company's audience. You can spend a lot of money and spin your wheels trying to get someone who's coming off their 4-year warranty, who spent years learning and understanding the Medtronic or the Tandem interface, and have that not be a good use of your funds. Or you can go after the people who are still pump naive after all these years, who have raised their hand and said, I want to pump butt. And that's always been our target audience. And I was in an investor meeting last night, and I met a lovely woman who said that her niece is a type 1. She wears a Dexcom. She does not wear a pump right now. And it's not because she's not technically sophisticated. It's not because she can't afford it. It's that she finds it too socially awkward in the current form factor. And, people have all kinds of reasons for not adopting pumps. And Mod 1 is designed to overcome as many of those reasons in a single product as possible. And that doesn't mean it's going to be for everyone, but it's going to be a start. And a start is what this space needs desperately.
Months ago, I think you had talked about what happens after clearance and a possible commercialization. And I think at the time you talked out that the company might need as much as $50 million to launch a pump commercialization effort. At this point in time, do you think that big a number is still needed, or might there be a smaller capital need and then one that could be partially financed via what I'll call non-dilutive means?
One, all non-dilutive or strategic means are on the table. All licenses to international territories are on the table. We're not averse to any of that, as long as it doesn't affect what we think is the overall value of the asset in a big way. Because clearly, when you take non-dilutive strategic money overseas, you are diluting yourself to some extent because that territory isn't available to you anymore for whatever reason, right? The $50 million number was the number that this company went out with when they were on the road in February of 22 with Oppenheimer when they did their uplist round. I'd say that's kind of been a placeholder number. And I would say, based on what we know now and in terms of how we would attack this commercially, if we were to do this ourselves, there's no way I'd spend anything like that. There's too much opportunity to access distribution in this space, and distribution that would touch a lot of doctors who don't currently write pumps, but who probably should. There are big opportunities to partner with other kinds of organizations that can help us move this product and raise awareness and probably generate pull without us having to have a rep in someone's office every day. And even where we do need to probably have a small fleet of direct reps, they're going to be calling on the high volume nurse diabetes educator practices where the educators know they have people who are missing out, who come in and are unsatisfied with their current options. And we want to be that second, third, or fourth option on the table next to the other three for people that say no, 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 for various reasons. And the nice thing about that sale is we have to convince them that we're viable, which shouldn't be hard since we now have an FDA cleared product that has the same label as the Tandem T-Slim. We have to educate them as to what's different about our product, why it won't be as much of a hassle for them, what customers it might be, or what patients it might be appropriate for. But we don't have to go in and say who's coming off their 4-year warranty. We don't have to say this is why our pizza button is better than their pizza button. We don't have to re-detail and re-adjudicate the whole thing. We're just another option on the table that they should consider for the right patient. And I think that's a very, very different sale and a very, very different level of touch and frequency of touch than you need with the other method, which is how everyone else sells right now. So I think the combination of those two things, I think, takes our number much, much lower than the number that you just described, which I think does a good job of depicting what a heavy effort direct sales strategy might look like on a limited.
I was going to say, don't you also have the option in terms of basically giving a dummy cartridge to somebody and allowing them to go home and give it a try themselves?
Oh yeah, well that's another reason that you have the rep in the office to drop off another set of 10 samples, so that when Felicia with the flip phone walks in and says, "I want a pump, but I can't handle it, but I really don't want one of those. That's too much work." You say, "Well, why don't you try this? Take this home, watch a 10-minute YouTube video, then come back, and if that's going to work for you, then we'll do 20 minutes of training, and you can have a pump." That's an unheard of offering in pump land. So, yeah, I think we're pretty excited about giving people that choice and having that in front of them.
A little earlier in this video, you started talking about investigating GLP-1s and kind of where things hopefully might go after doing a little animal trial. Could you talk about the bigger picture there? You talk about GLP-1s. Obviously, this is the hottest thing out there in pharma land. What are we talking about specifically as the opportunity, and what's the size theoretically of this relative to, I think, what you talk about in insulin land, which is kind of a $3 billion TAM?
Our base market is the $3 billion, which is 25% of the current multiple daily injector market that requires daily basal and bolus insulin. So that's market one, right? So the reason we're interested, so in the GLP-1 market, size-wise, we don't know how many non-responders there are because of GI-related adverse events and lack of efficacy late in the week. But we think it's significant based on the dropout rates that Blue Cross Blue Shield has reported. So The concept is very simple. Just like our pump isn't oriented towards everyone, a pump that carried a GLP-1 wouldn't be oriented towards everyone either. It would be oriented towards people who can't tolerate the weekly shots or aren't getting the efficacy from the weekly shots. So the idea would be that you would wear, so instead of going to your doctor after you've had a bad experience with Ozempic and saying, what else do you have for me? And having them say, well, I have Mounjaro, which works exactly the same way and will probably have the same effect on you. Or if you don't want Mounjaro, I have the older weight loss drugs with their cardiovascular hair, or I have bariatric surgery, which you don't want to do. Or you can just be frustrated. This gives them an intermediate. This would give them an intermediate option. The idea is that that a pump would allow you to titrate up and titrate down on the fly rather than being committed to a given rate for the entire week. We know that a lot of the side effects here are because the PK curve on these drugs all looks the same. It's up for the first couple days, tailing off into the right zone probably in the middle of the week, and then for some people it goes much lower, and so they don't get any hunger suppression late in their cycle or get very little. And so to give you mechanically a straight basal throughout the course of the day, just like our pump is designed to deliver at dosages very similar to insulin, if not the same, and the ability to just push a button to bolus around meals, both would help with your overall blood sugar levels. And what we're trying to explore in the proof of concept study is, can you get away with a much lower level of basal if you bolus around meals? But of course, you can't tell a shot, I'm about to have a meal, up the dose, because it's a shot that you took once a week, but you can with a pump. And so that's the idea, is a more personalized approach for a different set of patients that can't handle the current products. And the reason you would want to use a different drug is, Ozempic and Mounjaro are long-lasting drugs by design, right? That's why they are the category killers that they are right now. But if you push that bolus button on Monday morning and you bolus yourself, and what the drug that's inside is Ozempic, you are committed to that for another week, whatever that upper dose was. What you want is something that dissipates relatively quickly. So if you aren't feeling so good and you want to put this on pause, or you want to lower the dose, you want that to kick in relatively quickly too. And you want, if you're going to do a big bolus spike, you want that to come back down. So we want a more rapid acting product. So the product we're trialing is a much shorter acting GLP-1 that's been approved as a 2 to 3 times a day bolus since 2010 and is generic now, but has never been cleared in a pump. So we're exploring whether or not there's a mechanical application here where we can basically use the rapid acting features of this drug, which attacks the same receptor, is an antagonist of the same receptor as the longer acting ones, but allows you to lower the dose, put it on pause, or up the dose around meals. So that's the idea. We're not trying to jump on the GLP-1 hype train just because we want to jump on the GLP-1 hype train because everybody's doing it. If the non-responder rate if the number of people who are non-responders, if 2% of them were interested in trying a pump instead, if they can't, and because they still want this to work, that would equate to roughly the size of our initial target market in insulin.
And just to be clear, the thinking is basically, by not having this massive amount of GLP-1 injected into your system, which is probably causing the gastrointestinal distress, the diarrhea, the nausea, all the fun things, by just having a little bit that drips in,
yeah, you're mechanically leveling the stream instead of, and look, the weeklies are some people don't have these issues, but you can see in the pharmacokinetic curve that the weeklies have a peak in the first couple of days, and then they tail off, and then they go much lower than what's probably ideal. And so, and the other problem, and if you start to go too low and then you say, oh, I want to add on top of that, well, then you're stuck with that decision too for another week. You want the periods of decision making to be much shorter if you're going to give people a little bit more control. And I think our product is uniquely positioned to look at this opportunity. One, because it's finally cleared, right? So nobody wants to risk a platform that where the FDA might not be okay with the pumping technology. Two, the reservoir that you need to get through 3 days with one of these drugs is about 3 mLs, which is the size of our reservoir and not insulates. It's got to be a product that's low enough cost that you could bundle it with the drug, which ours is. It's got to have the right kinds of plastics. You're unlikely to get leachables and contaminants, which ours is. And it's got to be easy enough to learn that you could learn how to titrate up and down without taking on apps, a second cell phone, or all the other complexity that the other pumps offer, which ours doesn't. So the nice thing about this is we're not changing. I just want to be absolutely clear about this in terms of why you're getting distracted with this other totally unnecessary application. This is proof of concept study. We're using rodents, and rodents. By the way, rodents have proven to be very, very applicable to human beings' metabolism. Good results in rodent studies are very indicative of how well you're going to do in a human being in this category, much more so than other categories like oncology. So let's just get that out there. And we're doing it at Gubra, who is the gold standard in terms of these metabolic studies. Their campus employs 250 people, and it's literally right next door to Novo Nordisk in Denmark. And they're public. Their rodent processing facility is big enough business in Denmark that it's on the Danish exchange now. So anyway,
I was just going to say, and from a cash standpoint, if this in fact the study works well, and then you were to move forward with somebody, it would be the pharma company that would be bearing the financial risk.
It's funny,
it's not you.
In device land, everyone wants to see the clearance, and you build the manufacturing line and do all this other stuff first. In pharmaceutical land, everybody wants to have the exclusive earlier on so that they lock it up. I mean, if I were one of the big metabolic players right now and I saw 90 drugs in development coming down the pipe, I would want this to be my brand, and I would want to option everything under the sun that touch this. I can't speak for what they're going to do, but I think we would seek a partner for this either after the rodent study or after a small first-in-human study where we show that, okay, what we saw in the rodents, because we're not going to use our own pump to deliver to the rodents because it's never been used on a rodent before either, and that would introduce a whole other variable. So we're trying to get, these are the doses that our pump could deliver. This is how it worked with the rodents, and then do a small first-in-human study, and then we'll partner it off if there's interest. We haven't decided we're going to be a drug company now, and we're going to take this all the way.
Got it. I know we are running out of time here. Anything else that we should have covered today, or that you want to just talk about as we end up?
I think this is an exciting time for the company, and I think those who think that we're back on an FDA timeline and we're going to have a press release every 3 months are going to be surprised at how much progress we're going to make in a short period of time. Now that we're here. So, but thank you.
No, thank you. Firstly, thank you again for joining us at the conference and speaking about MOD's both operational targets and strategic opportunities. I want to just say, everybody who's watching this, please note that MOD's management, Jeb, will be participating in one-on-one meetings during the conference. Please visit us at www.lythampartners.com/fall2024, and please register for a meeting. And other than that, thank you again for watching this, and we hope you all enjoy the Lytham Fall conference. Have a good day.
Thank you.